Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'll be going over multiple areas to watch, including an area across the Florida Peninsula, as well as a main development region wave that we are watching for the potential of impacts across the northern Lesser Antilles. I'll also be going over the chance for tropical development towards the middle and latter half of October, somewhere across the Western Caribbean and the Southwestern Gulf. Let's go right on into today's video. So taking a look here at our current satellite imagery across much of North America, as well as the Atlantic Basin, we have what is left of Imelda out here across portions of the central Atlantic. This is also combined with Umberto. Both are now post-tropical cyclones as they have merged with a cold front. You can see the cold front's general location right about in here. And this cold front is actually what's going to help to increase the chance for tropical development, specifically along the southern side of it, right here along the southern tip of Florida, possibly even going into the smallest portion of the northeastern Gulf. And really the main concern here is going to be flash flooding across eastern Florida for the next about week or so, as well as over the next 3 days or so for the southeastern tip of Louisiana, specifically around the New Orleans area. There's also an area we're watching way down here, part of a monsoonal trough, I believe is what it's called, way down here off the coastline of Africa, and that is likely going to slowly increase with moisture and instability over the next couple days, and we will likely see a tiny weak wave off the coastline of Africa that ends up hitting the northern edge of this monsoonal trough. And once it does that, it will carry some of that moisture from the monsoonal trough with it and likely attempt to organize into a tropical storm or depression by the time it gets somewhere between the central Leeward Islands or just barely north of the Leeward Islands as we go into mid next week. We have a lot to talk about with the NHC products, so let's go ahead and dive on into it. We have post-tropical cyclone Imelda out here in the open North Atlantic Ocean. This is just going to stay as a pretty weak post-tropical cyclone for the next week or so out in the northern Atlantic Ocean. Then we have our main area of interest here. This is the AOI with a 20% chance of formation over the next 7 days or so. I do expect those probabilities to climb gradually with time, as long as our models continue to show the likelihood of a tropical depression and or a tropical storm like they actively are. We also have another area of interest, like I said, across the Florida Peninsula, across portions of the southwestern Atlantic, as well as into the northeastern Gulf, and again, the Florida Peninsula there. So keeping an eye on this for the very small chance of tropical development. I do not expect this to become a tropical named storm or a tropical depression. Most likely, it's going to just stay as a very weak, broad, low pressure. Main impacts with that will by far be just very heavy rain across the eastern coastline of Florida, and then again with southeastern Louisiana, specifically New Orleans, pointing to the south and southeast. Before we dive on into the rest of today's video, I ask that you guys hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media to help spread weather awareness, and if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload another video. Let's go right on into the rest of today's video. As for the Eastern Pacific, we have what is currently Tropical Storm Octave out here with a maximum wind speeds of about 65 miles per hour and a minimum pressure of about 996 millibars. And we also have an area of interest, about a 90% chance of development just off the coastline of Mexico. I do think we'll see a secondary area of interest somewhere generally in this vicinity as we go towards the middle portion of next week. I do think we'll see another tropical depression or storm form out of a very disorganized low pressure as we go towards the end of next week, but it should become a bit better, well organized as we go into the weekend next week, which is still, a good 200 hours out or so, but there's a lot of model support for an additional tropical storm somewhere off the coastline of Mexico. But with these two systems here, this tropical storm Octave will likely rapidly weaken as this system becomes a more dominant tropical storm or hurricane, and it will likely end up being a Fujiwara effect as we go into Wednesday or Thursday next week, where this system becomes a more dominant tropical storm or hurricane and Octave just dies out. We do want to keep an eye on this area of interest. A few models do have it becoming a problem for the southwestern US or Baja California in the form of potentially a landfall. If not, then a lot of tropical moisture that could cause some flash flooding across Baja California and maybe the southwestern US. Now, taking a look at the official CPC tropical formation outlook for week 2, October 8th through the 14th, they already have an area of possible tropical development just south of Mexico, as well as a 20% chance of tropical development in the southwestern Gulf. Of course, also an area of tropical development out here in the main development region, including the central and almost portions of the northern Leeward Islands. Then going on into the week 3 time frame from October 15th through the 21st, they have a huge area of tropical development out here in the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf, as well as in the Eastern Pacific for the North American gyre that will likely set up across this region, bringing an elevated chance of any tropical development on both basins of the Eastern Pacific and in the Atlantic. So we have a 40% chance, a large 40% chance tropical development there in the Western Caribbean, as well as in the Eastern Pacific and the Southwestern Gulf. Again, that is for October 15th through the 21st. However, that could last well beyond the 21st time frame as well. So we need to watch that for really the middle and the rest of October, all the way from the 15th through the end of October. Now let's take a look at the official Weather Prediction Center forecast for rain over the next 7 days or so. You could see very high totals for rainfall across eastern Florida. We could have isolated amounts upwards of 8 inches of rainfall, especially as we get closer to in between Fort Lauderdale and Daytona Beach across southeastern Florida. And also the chance for heavy rainfall up to 2 inches of rain all the way up to Charleston, South Carolina over the next 6 or 7 days. Also the chance for very heavy rainfall in New Orleans up to about 3 inches of rain, with up to 7 inches of rain near Port Sulphur in southeastern Louisiana. So definitely going to see some flash flooding issues over the next 6 or 7 days here across mainly southeastern Louisiana, as well as from southeastern Florida up to southwestern South Carolina. Now let's take a look at some model data using the 12Z GFS model provided by tropicaltidbits.com. Let's go out just a few hours. You can see what is now post-tropical cyclone Imelda out here in the central Atlantic. That's just going to begin to spiral around across a cold front, as well as with a high pressure to its east. It's just going to be spiraling out there in the central Atlantic for the next week or so, until eventually it dissipates well into the northeastern Atlantic Ocean. Bringing this back a little bit, I want to bring your attention to the Bahamas here going into Saturday morning. And you could see this area of very heavy rainfall across this region right in here. And that is actually where our cold front is, very close to where our cold front is on the northern edge of that pink area I just drew. So you have a cold front that is right in about here, and you have a high pressure here. So your high pressure is just stalling out that cold front, and your high pressure is also not allowing much moisture to get further north than that cold front. So it's really just a boundary of very heavy rain stuck over the eastern peninsula of Florida, maybe into southeastern Georgia as we go into Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. Then as we go into Sunday morning, you can see that does lift a little bit more north. That low pressure does begin to get a little bit more organized here over Florida. Still very, very disorganized, but organized enough to the point where it can push some rain almost into that high pressure here across the coastal areas of Florida, still almost up into Myrtle Beach, South Carolina there into Sunday. See heavy rainfall still ongoing across New Orleans and southeastern Louisiana going into Sunday afternoon now. That just continues to be the case. Heavy rain across Louisiana, heavy rain across the coastal areas in the southeastern U.S. And then as we go into Monday, you can see that high pressure has moved, right? Sunday afternoon, that high pressure is over Virginia, North Carolina. And then Sunday night into Monday morning, that shifts over here into the Atlantic Ocean, which actually allows for the high pressure to help aid in the chance of tropical moisture across the southeastern U.S. So that should help enhance the chance of heavier rainfall across portions of Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, and northern Florida as we go into Monday and Tuesday. And then by the time we get into Wednesday, a lot of this heavy rainfall has just kind of really weakened as a whole, but still some flooding will be possible on Wednesday and Thursday as another cold front pushes through, this time due to a trough across the central U.S. moving eastward across the eastern U.S. And I expect this trough will be very much positively tilted, so I don't think we'll see much severe weather with it going into Wednesday and Thursday, but we could have some isolated thunderstorms with this heavier rainfall here, especially in the southeastern U.S. as we go into Wednesday night and Thursday morning. Then by the time we get to next Friday, this is all cleared out as a strong high pressure builds in over the central U.S. Now I want to bring your attention across the main development region off the coastline of Africa. So this is our little monsoonal trough, I believe it's called, generally right out in this area. So it's just an area of a lot of moisture and instability, favorable for tropical development, especially if you can get a good low pressure or wave to interact with that monsoonal trough. And if we go ahead and pull this out, you really can't see it too well on the GFS, but you indeed do get a little wave here. If I bring it back, you can see a little wave comes off the coastline of Africa right in here. And I mean, this is a very small wave, very weak wave with very minimal vorticity, but it's enough to grab a hold of the moisture from the monsoonal trough and yank it off to the northwest. And because of that, you have this large area of disorganized moisture out here in a favorable environment in the Atlantic. And so the GFS just says, hey, it's in a good environment. It's a big plume of moisture. Why not? Let's just throw it into a hurricane. And so that's exactly what the GFS model run does. It does have a very big bias with spinning up tropical systems way too quickly. But in this case, I do think a tropical storm or depression is going to be a very real likelihood going into the middle portion of next week across the northern and eastern Lesser Antilles. I should say more of the northern and central Lesser Antilles here. That would be probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the likelihood of a tropical depression or tropical storm. Anything more than that, it's way too far out to say for certain. And where it goes exactly in this area, it's too far out. But we do have something better than just a deterministic GFS run. That's called ensembles. We're going to take a look at the main batch of ensembles, the Google AI ensembles, the Euro ensembles, and the GFS ensembles. This is the Google AI ensembles, and you can see a lot of the Google AI ensembles has a pretty tight spread here, either barely over the Lesser Antilles or barely north of the Lesser Antilles. Now, this is a little bit more north than our other ensembles. If we switch to our European ensembles, you can see recently, wow, especially on the new 12Z, I didn't see this till literally just now, the new 12Z is substantially further off to the southwest. Still a couple ensembles a bit on the northern side there, but generally we are looking at a very close call, if not an impact for the northern and maybe the central Lesser Antilles going into, again, probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week. So we want to keep a very close eye on this. Let's take a look at the GFS ensembles, which have tended to be the worst ensembles this year, but hey, it's another tool in the toolbox. And you can see that's really good agreement as well. Really good agreement on the potential for impacts across the northern and central Lesser Antilles, or a very close near miss. And I want to pull this out just a little bit further here, just to show you the spread after that. Some of these take it out to sea, others actually pull it back into towards the US. So there's no point in going further than about 200-ish hours out, because after this area here, after the Lesser Antilles, the uncertainty is just substantially insane. So there's just no point whatsoever discussing it. But I do think a tropical storm or depression is likely across the Lesser Antilles, if not barely north of the Lesser Antilles, going into the middle portion of next week. And then impacts will be possible going into the middle and later portion of next week across the central and northern Lesser Antilles. All right, y'all, that's going to be it for today's video. I greatly appreciate you guys watching all the way till the end. Hopefully you did enjoy, and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Stay safe, watch the weather, and especially watch the tropics. Goodbye.